Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode. In this episode, we have a young man by the name of Patrick, and a little fun fact, Patrick did in fact come through Rock Recovery Center, and we did have to throw him out, unfortunately. But with that being said, even though it was a tough time for him in the moment, he chose to thrive and to rise above that, and he used that as an opportunity to maintain his sobriety. He saw it as a hardship, and he chose to get through it, and he didn't drink, he didn't use drugs, and ultimately he's sitting here with us today with almost 2 years of sobriety. You're going to hear somebody that has really didn't know what to do with his life, and now he's in a position to where he's working in treatment. He's helping other drug addicts, other alcoholics on a daily basis, and it's just a great story of encouragement. I know you're going to love it. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we also have a young man, I think, how old are you?
I'm 36.
Okay, 36-year-old man by the name of Patrick. Patrick, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Pull that mic up on you a little bit more. There you go. Don't be afraid to use the lungs. First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Ben?
Whoop, whoop.
That was
Tried
good.
something new, bro.
That was good. Patrick, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, Ben set this up, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, something like last week, something like that.
Yeah. So I'll do a little intro. We've known Patrick now for, it's got to be going on 2 years.
Just about.
Has it been 2 years?
Almost. July will be 2 years.
Get
I've
out.
been down here, yeah.
Whoa.
So Patrick came to Rock Recovery Center a couple years ago as a client, and has been here ever since, and has a story. You know, we full transparency, I haven't talked to you since you left.
Yeah.
And I know Ben had set this up a couple weeks ago, and I know you guys probably have been in communication off and on.
Patrick does a good job. I'll throw it out there. I need to do a better job. Patrick has done a good job, like reaching out to me now and again. Like we text back and forth, and he just checks in, man. And to be straight up with you, I really appreciate that, because a lot of times, like, I get in the weeds. And just hearing from guys like him that have come through the program, that are currently working a program and really contributing to recovery as a whole in the community, like, I love getting those text messages, dude. It literally, like, lights me on fire for the day. So any day that you've reached out to me, it's like, it's a blessing, because I'm like, all right, what we're doing is at least helping someone. Or at least, like, maybe we played a small part. So, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't take credit for your success.
Yeah. So Patrick, the way that this is really formatted, it's just organic conversation. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you found your way to Florida, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I grew up in Washington State, came down here by accident, really. I was making calls, I was drinking a lot with my best friend, and her fiance had threatened to move out and go back to his dad's house. And so her and I were like, we really got to get our shit together. So we got ready like we were going to work, even though we weren't. We went to my house and drank, and I Googled some AA meetings, called a number, and they were like, oh, we don't have any meetings in your area. So I called another number and talked to some guy and ended up in treatment the next day. So that was like that divine intervention, I feel like, that time. Because after I talked to the guy on the phone and agreed to come down here, I just started bawling. And I don't know if, like, looking back at it, I feel like that was like a relief or something. Like I was finally going to be getting help of some sort. I just didn't know how to ask for it. And so when that happened, it was like this release of emotion. Like, I'm not a crier, so... Well, I wasn't before I was in recovery. Now I cry. But
yes.
Yeah, I came down here for 28 days and ended up staying. Like the more that my mind cleared and detox and they started talking about going to PHP and whatnot, I was like, all right, like if I know myself and if I go back right now, I'm just going to get right back into drinking. Same routine, like I hate traffic. So I'm just going to go to the bar after work, drink, and then go home. And I was back and forth between drinking and edibles. Like those are legal in Washington and Oregon. So I would just go to the dispensary and that was sober for me. Like, oh, I'm just going to get high instead of drink. And it was like this vicious cycle of like this back and forth. Then I ended up down here like the end of July of 22, came to Rock. Ben and Destiny had came and talked to me and my friend that were there at the time. And then I was here for a couple weeks and I was like thinking like I really need to get back to this job after this 30 days. And
you had a good job. What was that job again?
I was a discharge planner at a hospital in Portland. So I was making like $30 an hour, doing really well. There was not really room for growth from where I was, like other than going to school and getting into nursing or something. But the position itself was really good. And like they recognized, like that health system that I worked for really recognized all of us like as employees. And so they did a really good job of like giving raises, like substantial raises, not just like, oh, here's 25 cents or something.
Hang on. I want to ask you something real quick. Cause you talked about how you were going back and forth from edibles to drinking. And the reason I want to bring this up is because oftentimes we hear people, they want to do the whole, I know it as just California sober.
Yeah.
I think Demi Lovato really kind of kicked that off, or didn't kick it off, but like it really gained traction when she came out with it. And I believe she's no longer doing California sober and she's abstinence based or I don't even know if she's sober at this point, but
from what I understand,
I guess I want you to dive in a little bit more on the thought process behind that and if it worked and for how long and ultimately why it didn't.
So I think a lot of it was who I was surrounding myself with. I mean, I was constantly at the bar drinking. Like, I feel like for everybody, drinking is socially acceptable. So why not do it, And now that I'm sober, somebody asked me the other day about legalizing marijuana. They're like, I wish that they would just legalize it. And now I have a different thought about that where I'm like, for medicinal purposes, if that works, then that's great. But as for legalizing it for just like a social kind of like drinking, I don't really agree with that anymore because it is a mind altering substance. And so for me, I knew that I was drinking a lot. I would drink to black out. I was doing stupid shit. I don't know if I can say that. Sorry.
you can.
But I was just doing stupid stuff and consequences were coming and I was like ruining family relationships and whatnot. And so I was talking to this guy that was at the bar, that worked at the bar that I would go to. And he was like, why don't you just get high instead? And that way you're not like blacked out, And I was like, I don't like smoking it. And he was like, well, try this. So I tried an edible that he had and I liked it. So I was like, all right, like it let me be like loose, like easy to talk to people, whatever. And so in my mind, that was a solution for not drinking. But then I would get high and I'd be like, well, I can have a drink. Like I haven't drank in like a week, I can have one. But then it was never one. It was always another and another. And like the insanity that they talk about, that vicious cycle, that delusion that we have that it's going to be different. I was definitely stuck in that. And I didn't know anything about that until I got down here and like really dove into AA and got to know like, everything about the disease. Still don't know everything, like I feel like I'm constantly a work in progress learning. And, if my experience can help somebody else, then that's what I try to do is just share on that.
I like what you said about you're 2 years sober and still learning. a lot of times, like we get a lot of families and loved ones that listen to our podcast, and they just kind of look at it like, oh, he's achieved sobriety. Like people have to realize, the addicts and alcoholics themselves, like, this is a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still learning about recovery on a daily basis. It's literally never ends. And you better, in my opinion, become more and more and more of an expert as life goes on, because the better life gets as a result of recovery, the more in dangerous water we're in, because we're like, ooh, I have arrived. Like, I've achieved sobriety. We actually just had a gentleman come back that was here 3 years ago, had some significant time, got married sober, and then ended up drinking on the honeymoon on a cruise ship. But same thing, like, life got real good, working a program, and stopped doing so. And, so that the better life gets, it's almost like we're in a little bit even more dangerous water, if you will, if you don't keep growing.
Yeah, and I feel like for me coming down here, I was desperate. I was broken. I needed direction. And even though I felt like I was a functioning alcoholic because I had a good job and what have you, I didn't really understand when I was getting into AA, like my life is unmanageable. Like, I didn't really understand that at that point. And a lot of it is like, in my mind, like the unmanageability of like not being able to control like when, where, why I'm drinking. Even if I didn't want to drink, I was drinking. If I was sick, I was drinking to feel better.
How long did your looking back on it now, your alcoholic drinking, how long did you do that for?
I don't really remember the age that I was when I first drank. There was a time where my best friend that lived 3 houses down was over, and my dad let us have like a little cap of like wild turkey or something. And I thought that was nasty. When I was like 15, I started drinking like some Mike's Hard Lemonades and stuff. And then throughout that summer and stuff, I would drink, but it was usually like the weekend, whatever, like camping, that kind of stuff. But when I turned 21, that was what we did. We would go out all the time. I had ended up in the hospital a couple times with alcohol poisoning. And I feel like when COVID hit, me and my friend that came down here to detox together, her and I were quarantined together. And that was, I feel like, a major turning point when, Washington, you can buy liquor off of the shelves at the grocery store. So we would have it DoorDash to our house or Instacart to our house and just drink like all day. Couldn't taste it. So,
Oh, because you guys had COVID together.
Yeah. So by the time we came down here, we were drinking like a half gallon of vodka a day between the two of us.
I have a totally random question just to answer it for myself, because I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
A lot of young folks under the age of 21 nowadays, like, they end up here and they're like, yeah, I got my liquor Instacarted or whatever. Do they ID you at any point for that?
They're supposed to, yeah.
Like, who does it? The person dropping it off?
Yeah, so usually when you drop it off, you have to scan their ID. There's like a camera on
Right.
the phone that you have to scan their ID.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I was like, maybe there's a loophole.
Yeah.
I have this lady at Wawa when I go and buy my little nicotine pouch things.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wawa has this policy. They ID everybody. You could be 80 years old and they're IDing you. But that's what they do. They pull and some of them, like the one guy, I just show it to him and he pretends like he looks at it and he's like, you're good. Yeah. This other lady, every time she's like, I go to show it to her, she's like, I need you to pull it out. I have to scan it. And I'm like, oh, yay.
Yeah. But I feel like with those deliveries too, you can be like, leave at my door or what have you. So if they get somebody that's willing to do that and not scan an ID, then I feel like, that's an easy way to get around that. Not for the benefit of anybody, really, because you could get in big trouble for doing that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I was just curious about that, because we had a case here not long ago, 18-year-old that was like, yeah, I'm getting it Instacarted to the house. I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know that was a thing, really. Look at this, man. Like, we're getting old, dude. Kids are coming up with new stuff, and like, pretty soon they're going to be doing drugs I never did.
Well, I feel like that's been happening.
Yeah, that's already happening. Trank and
Yeah. Did you ever do crocodile?
That was around in Lake Worth in my day.
Really?
I stayed away from that. The flesh-eating stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some drugs?
Like some stuff like that. You know, we talk about, like, all the hippies are like Quaaludes, man, you know, and Quaaludes were gone by the time I was born. Probably born.
Went to straight Xanax.
Yeah, so I don't know, just stuff like that. Like I feel like we're maybe starting to get old, Tom.
Well, Patrick too. He's not far behind us.
Yeah, he's not far behind.
I don't know.
So, coming to Florida, I remember having a conversation with you, and you were pretty adamant about going back.
Yeah.
At what point did that change? And what were you going to say?
I want to ask in regards to this, but I kind of want to bring it up different, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, part of what I was thinking when Patrick came in here to podcast is he really had some forks in the road where he could have made a decision to go either way, whether it be back home or not. And I do remember now going, we were talking about this before we hit record. I was like, wasn't there some best friend that you worked with at the hospital so it was kind of odd. Like, first of all, we get this call from this detox, like, hey, got these two that may be interested in coming to rock. And I'm like, what do you mean these two? One's male, one's female. Like, oh, we're quote unquote best friends, because we hear that all the time, and really it's a couple.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, all right, they're probably a couple. Like, we'll see what's going on. But I remember going to see you at the detox, and I forget her name, and we don't have to mention it for podcast sake, but sitting down at the detox, and she decided to go home and you decided to stay, which I found very interesting, because you two came together and you were like two peas in a pod and we're not separating. What was your thought process there? What like made you decide to stay when you two came here together with every intention of doing everything together?
Yeah, I think, for me, when I really thought about it, that when they first started talking about PHP, the health system I worked for, like the abbreviation for the insurance is PHP. So I was like, why are they talking about our insurance? Like I didn't know what PHP was. But when I learned about what it was, that seed was planted for me to kind of think about it. And my brain was clearing a bit to where I was like, if I go back home, I'm just going to do the same thing that I was doing before. And so, when I found out that my insurance would cover it, I could stay here for that. I was like, I need to stay longer than just the 28 days that I intended on coming down here. And, learning that it was a 30-day program, I was like, all right, like another month wouldn't do me any bad. Like I've messed up all these relationships, what have you. Like I wanted to stop drinking bad enough. The desperation was there to where I was willing to do whatever. And so, I don't think I was totally willing at that point, because when I got here, I still wanted to leave. I wanted to go back, because letting go of that job, it was a great opportunity, and I had really worked very hard to get to where I was. But I had to come to terms with letting that go and like realizing I wasn't really happy working there. Like I loved my coworkers. The job was easy. I was really good at it. But if I was truly happy, I wouldn't have been doing what I was doing on the side, like going out and drinking all the time and what have you. So, I had the chance to get the same job down here at a hospital, and I got hired, and, God had other plans for me. I ended up getting another job. And when I looked at it, I was like, I wasn't happy doing it at home. Like, what makes me think I'd be happy doing it here? Yeah, the pay is great, what have you, but I needed to like step back and do something different, to get a different result. Because, if I went back, I was just going to end up doing the same thing.
It's kind of funny because on our end, it worked out, and it's, to be transparent with you now, we would not have taken both of you. I want to throw that out there. Like, they had us come talk to both of you, but just for the listeners, and this goes, it's very much related to like couples wanting to go to treatment together. You two are just best friends. We know that. But that can also interfere with the treatment process. If two best friends or a husband and a wife or whatever the case may be, any couple is in treatment together, it basically it has a high potential of sabotaging the treatment process. Because like, say for instance, you're sitting in groups together, it's a conflict of interest. That what we'll see is people start defending each other's stuff and justifying for each other and co-signing. And same thing can happen with best friends, and if one falls off, what are the chances the other one falls off? Oh, you're my best friend. You're drinking. Let's go together. I'll throw it out there real quick, just as a real quick example. When I was doing my hours to become an addictions counselor, I had to run a certain number of hours a group, and I ended up, going to a place that was willing to sign off on my hours. Come to find out that they actually let a couple come in and sit in my group together. They were in my group every night together, 3 nights a week. And the girl was like 7 months pregnant with his kid. They met in a halfway house. And here I am like trying to run group with both of them. And they'd be bickering amongst each other. Or if like I like tried to help one, the other one would totally derail what I was talking about. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick. So in a way, like not in a way, but I'm really glad you decided to stay, regardless of what she decided to do. But just to throw it out there, Rock wouldn't have taken both of you at the same time because it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, and I feel like, I didn't realize at the time how codependent I was on not just her, but so many people in my life. And so I'm glad that, I feel like my higher power, like when I look back at everything, I've always believed in a God of some sort, but I wasn't a religious person. So for me, like getting into this program and like having a God of my own understanding, wasn't like a far reach to be able to do that. There definitely was times where, I was like, is this whole thing even real kind of thing? But, I just took suggestions as I went along the way and prayed about stuff, like about staying down here. I asked for signs, and ever since I was 16 and went to the DMV, this number that I pulled at the DMV was 333. And since I was 16, that number will appear. And I remember praying one morning, like, please just like show me a sign that I'm doing the right thing by staying here. And we drive by the gas station and the gas is $3.33 a gallon. I'm like, I can't really ignore that, like just little things like that. But really, I feel like being down here so far away from home and removed from the alcohol and the drug, allowed my mind to clear. And like, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything at the time, like I was like a fish out of water, and I was like, I just need to go with the flow, and I was willing to take the direction and everything. And I feel like that's something that's hard when you start getting into the steps and people, life starts getting better. And I feel like that's when people fall off, of like doing the steps, or, oh, I got to step 3, everything's going great. I'm in treatment, I'm almost done with treatment, what have you, wherever they're at in the process, and things start getting better. And so then they're like, well, I don't need this. And for me, I still go to meetings every week, as many as I can. I started working a new job about 3 weeks ago. So that stopped me from going to the normal like 8:30 meetings at night that I would go to. But that just changes my schedule. Like I have to go to earlier meetings. I have to, go on the days off that I have. I can go to the 8:30 meetings, which I enjoy still. I don't go to a meeting because I need it per se anymore. I go to it so that I can hopefully share and help somebody else that's in there. And, I do H&Is now for AA. And this treatment center that I go to do my H&Is the second and the fourth Friday of every month, I always pray before I go in there that I'll help at least one person that's in there. If I can share something that's going to hit somebody and get them to relate in some sort of a way, then I feel like, my job there was accomplished. I just want to help people. So everything that, I don't have kids. So when I share or if somebody asks me advice on stuff and it's like got to do with kids, I'm like, I can't really give you advice on that because I haven't been through anything like that. But, I've met so many people through being in recovery that I can kind of point them in the right direction for like, oh, you should ask this person. I didn't even know it at the time. But when I asked my sponsor to be my sponsor, I was in Ben Harrison's sponsorship family. I didn't even know that was like his grand sponsee or anything.
Ben Harrison's one of our facilitators here at Rock. He's an addictions counselor, just for anybody that might not know who he is that's listening.
Yeah, so I feel like, me also completing or like getting to go to a different facility for IOP, it's kind of like a blessing in disguise too, because then that didn't have like a conflict of interest with him being a therapist and me being in treatment here. And I've really got close to a lot of the guys in my sponsorship family. And I don't know, it's, they've become my family down here. A lot of people in recovery have become my family down here that I don't have. My roommate, I met her at the IOP that I went to. And, we have a really good relationship. And at times it can be rocky because we live together and that's just, the course of everything. But I love her to death. I would do anything. And she's somebody that I met in recovery and we've been there for each other through so much,
What I'm hearing is you've like established a real community down here and family.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to touch on real quick. You mentioned you had to go to a different IOP. No need to go into details because it actually involves another client here too. But you got in a confrontation with another client. We ended up having to transfer you out like what, you were a week into IOP?
Yeah, I think I was, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll throw this out there too. Patrick is like the sweetest, most docile guy like ever. So, but things at Rock happen sometimes. They're different personalities, whatnot. And we ended up having to transfer you out. We put you in a place where, frankly, like I love the people at the place that you went. It's called Reprieve. I'll just give them a shout out. They're really good people. I know the owners. Gentleman named Daniel works there. They are down to earth, good people. But to kind of go back, like I was talking earlier, there's forks in the road. Most people, in my opinion, would have said, screw this, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And you ended up just going with it and going there. Because I remember you and I sitting down. I think we were in the small group room, I think.
Yeah, we were over here. And I remember you saying, like, I really don't think you should go home. I think if you go home, you're going to be drunk before you get back to Washington.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, because I wanted to drink at that point. There was a lot going on and I was down here, by myself. I didn't know anybody at that point. I knew you guys and I wanted to stay here, but that wasn't an option anymore. And so I am forever thankful for you helping me get into Reprieve. At the time, it wasn't an ideal situation for me, but I also had to learn I'm not the one running the show and everything happens for a reason. I got there. Everybody was very welcoming. You took me there. Everybody was very welcoming. And it was like one of the best things that could have happened, I feel like, in my recovery because I got to meet so many more great people that work there. I still talk to people that work there. And being there was a point where I really wanted to drink. And one of the techs, she's the case manager there now. She was like, and then what? What's that going to do? Drinking or drugging is never going to make your situation any better. It's always going to make it worse. It's still going to be there. You're just going to be drunk or high.
I want to touch on something real quick. And to be straight up with you, this is like a testament to you and who you are as a human being. There's a saying in 12 steps, and the same goes for here, man. We don't shoot our wounded. And we don't ever expect anybody to come through. I'll use Rock as our example, the program, without ever making mistakes, without ever getting in confrontation, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to Patrick, and this goes for 99% of the clients that come through here, like the ones that relapse, the ones that get occasionally maybe we'll have like a scuffle or something, which happens very, very rare.
Yeah.
Rarely here, but like genuinely good people are inside, right? And you know, I do remember, now that you brought it up, like I personally drove you over to Reprieve, like you mentioned, because I wanted you to know that like we're not done with you as far as like our friendship, our fellowship, our community.
Yeah.
Like just because you couldn't be at Rock anymore, you're not an asshole. Just to put it point blank, we knew that you were a really good dude who, if you made the right choice by staying in Florida and you wanted this, like I wanted to make a clear message that like, dude, we're still in your corner.
Yeah.
You might not be a Rock. And I remember thinking to myself, looking back, and there's tons of cases like this, like looking back where it's like, if he makes the right decision right now, he will grow more from this than anything that could have ever happened had no confrontation happened.
Yeah.
Like that, again, that fork in the road. And you did the right thing when most people would have hightailed it home. But in my opinion, what people don't realize is some of those greatest conflicts that we run into, whatever the barrier is in our journey, where people either say, there's the acronym, you can fuck everything and run, or face everything and recover. The other acronym, just to throw it out there, is false evidence appearing real. But dude, you like faced it, you took the suggestions, you went, and that is where the growth happens. Growth doesn't happen through getting straight A's in treatment. Growth happens when the shit goes down and you're at a crossroads and people give you suggestions and you're like, ooh, all right, I'll take the suggestion anyway.
Yeah.
That's when growth happens. That's when the magic happens. We need conflict in our journey to test the tools and the principles that we've learned.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that, you know, it's oftentimes people are looking for a reason to go home or to self-sabotage, and you did the exact opposite. And I think that's huge. And I think that shows a level of maturity too. You know, at the time you would have been, 34 on your own. I mean, you really had the options. The option was there to go home, but I feel like you were mature enough and had enough wherewithal, you know, to make the right decision. I want to ask you, over the past 2 years, do you have 2 years yet, or you're coming up on 2 years?
I will have 2 years in the end of July.
Okay. So over this time, I don't want to talk more about the treatment aspect. You obviously thrived and you did well. I want to talk more about the program side of it. I don't think we do enough of that in terms of talking about the benefits of your program and helping people and what that has truly done for you. Because oftentimes people just think, I'm just going to put the plug in the jug and everything's going to be okay. I'll work the steps, so on and so forth. But where a lot of the benefits of this whole recovery thing comes with helping other people. How's that played an impact on you?
You know, I've never been to an AA meeting until I got down here. So for me, when I got down here and was at Rock and we went to Oasis for the first AA meeting I ever went to, I remember being scared shitless. Like I had no idea where I was at, you know, and I always, before I came down to treatment, I always thought that going to rehab was going to teach me how to drink better or hide it or what have you. Like I never thought that about AA, but when I got to AA, I was like in the back, you know, like on my phone or, you know, hiding, like not really listening.
They call that denial aisle.
Yeah.
The back row.
The relapse row.
Relapse row. There we go.
Yeah. And so I finally started listening when I was there, and I don't, you know, my sponsor shared, and that was something that I could relate with. And he had like this peace, you know, when he was talking and like this understanding of life and everything. That's why I asked him to be my sponsor. And it wasn't because I wanted what like I had no idea what he was wearing. I don't know what car he drove. Like none of that, you know. When they say like find somebody that has what you want, it's like the peace, you know, the serenity when they can share and it's something that you can relate to. It's not what car do they have, you know, do they look like they're rich, like that kind of thing. So for me, you know, being in the rooms has been, you know, treatment is great. And I would hear people in the rooms say kind of bad things about treatment, you know, and it's usually old timers that are like, oh, I never went to treatment, da 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 da. And it took me a while, and it finally clicked one day where I was like, you know, they're not really talking shit about the treatment centers because treatment is great, you know, and for me and my situation, I needed treatment. It removed me, you know, and it taught me a lot. You know, I, to this day, don't get out of bed without making my bed. Like, you know, just simple life things, and like was discussed when you and Destiny came and talked to me and my friend Intrepid. You know, we don't think about the little things like going to the grocery store and getting food and walking by the beer and alcohol and having that accountability to not buy something. And so in the rooms, you know, when people would, I feel like, say bad things about treatment, and there's a lot of people from treatment in these rooms, it kind of like rubs you the wrong way and makes you resent AA or the rooms. And when I finally realized that the solution, which is why treatment centers take you to AA and NA and whatever programs, it's because that is where the solution is. Like when you get into the steps in the book, that is where the solution is. Treatment is great for other aspects, you know, the mental health, the feelings, the emotions, all of that stuff that you're getting back and not used to. Treatment is amazing for those things and keeping you accountable and removed from the drink and the drug. But the rooms, you know, really are where the miracle happens, in my opinion. You know, like I'm forever thankful to AA. You know, I do the H&Is. I still go to meetings because I want to get sponsees. You know, I've worked with other guys. You know, I've taken the furthest that I've got is I did a 5th step with one last night, and I'm so excited that he finally made that, because for me personally, like that was a huge, like pivotal moment in my recovery was when I finished the 4th and the 5th step with my sponsor. That was like where everything kind of shifted. My perspective of everything shifted. And to be able to go through that with somebody else is amazing. You know, it's a gift really, like that I can do that with somebody else, like my sponsor did with me, and give back. You know, I feel like it's all just a blessing, you know, the fact that I'm still here and can be of service to others. And now, you know, I'm working in treatment. So now that I can be there, you know, I've been in that situation. And I feel like for me, you know, I'm not a very emotional person, but this working in treatment kind of helps me be like more sympathetic and understanding, you know, and I was in that situation. So for me, you know, it's helping me learn, you know, it's helping me grow as a person to be able to like understand and help other people and be there for them in other ways that I maybe am not so comfortable being there, you know, like whenever somebody would cry, I'd always get awkward and like want to run away, or like, you know, I'm like, like, do I give you a tissue? Because I feel like that's like, oh, stop crying, bitch. Like here. But you know, I'm just trying to get better at like life, I guess, you know, and the rooms and treatment and everything like has helped me so much. And I feel like, you know, the times that I reach out to you and everything, those are like moments where I'm thinking there's so many people. And the further I get into my recovery, it's crazy. Like there's so many people that even if it was like a little part of my recovery, they help me so much to where they don't even know it, you know, like you, the things that you've said to me, and by like taking me to reprieve and whatnot and telling me that, you know, the bridge isn't burned, you know, the door's not closed, you're always there for me, like meant the world, especially in that moment, you know. And so many people that I've met along this journey of recovery, you know, like mean more to me than they realize. And so I try to express that by reaching out and just checking in on people. You know, I feel like we all need that, everybody, whether you're in recovery or not, like just reach out to each other, check in. You know, sometimes it's the littlest thing that means the most.
That was pretty good.
Dude, it really was. I'm in my feels right now after hearing all that. Let me throw this out there for our listeners. I will stand by what I'm about to say. When someone leaves rock or any treatment or whatever the case may be, and they're a few months into their sobriety, one single parameter that I love hearing, one single thing, and you did it before we hit record. When someone comes out and says, I have sponsees, I just did a 5th step with them, I'm like, they get it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never the guy that says we got this, but like, dude, when somebody tells me that they're sponsoring, I'm like, you can't ask for one single parameter in my book that tells me that they are on their way to permanent sobriety. That's all there is to it. And the other thing I want to touch on, to rewind, like, you mentioned how old timers tend to bash treatment. I'll say this: 12-step program, best discharge plan on the face of the planet, hands down. I'll even say that in meetings myself. Like, treatment is a launching off point. A lot of the times, a very necessary launching off point where people wouldn't even make it to AA or make it through the first couple weeks of AA or any 12-step program without the assistance of treatment. But I just want to kind of throw it out there for any old timer that might be listening that says that kind of stuff, and maybe it's being misinterpreted, but just in case it's not, and that's the intention. Bill W., the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, went to treatment 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, please don't walk into a meeting and be like, you don't need treatment. Like, are there people out there that did not go to treatment and walk straight into AA? Yes, that's their experience. That's their story. But that might kill somebody else. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of is what it is on that one. But just want to throw that out there because I'm a buy-the-book guy. Yeah. Bill W., founder of AA. Right. Went to treatment 3 times.
Well, Patrick, I'd say you've come a long way, my friend.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, it blows my mind still that I've been sober this long. You know, I couldn't gather 30 days or even at times like a week, you know, between the two, like the weed or the alcohol. So it just blows my mind, you know, and I have to give it to God, my higher power, and everybody that's helped me along my journey, you know, like I'm ever evolving. I think we all are. And I appreciate you two and everybody that's helped me along the way. So the only thing I can do is like give back, you know, try to give back and be that person for somebody else.
So we'll end with this. Give a couple pieces of tangible advice that you would give to, I got 2 scenarios here. One, the person that is struggling and they are scared to take the plunge. We'll start there.
You know, I think to just finally make the call and get into treatment was like one of the biggest things that, you know, I didn't even know that's who I was calling. But if I could go back and consciously decide to call and get into treatment, like that is something that I would do. You know, it saved my life. You know, that call that day saved my life. I definitely would not be here. I can almost guarantee it with the rate that I was going. I don't know. I just, you know, definitely get into treatment and, you know, get into the steps, AA, you know, or NA, whatever your drug of choice is, like any 12-step program will be beneficial, you know, and it really gives us an upper advantage at life.
Yeah. And then the other one is a family or a loved one that has somebody in their life that is struggling. What can they do? What should they do to kind of help with the situation at hand?
You know, I'm kind of back and forth on this one because I feel at times that even if somebody told me that I needed to go to treatment or what have you, like even the closest people to me, I wouldn't have listened. But just kind of planting the seed, you know, like you may want to consider doing this or or what have you. And for me, you know, in recovery, a lot, you know, life isn't always great. You know, life still happens, life still shows up. It's lifey.
It's lifey.
Yeah.
I like that.
But for me, you know, in recovery, acceptance has been a huge thing, you know, and the acceptance prayer that is in the big book and everything. Like, I think about that often, because when things aren't going how I feel like they should go, I just have to accept that they are what they are, and it's going to be fine, you know, and realizing that not, you know, I can't be jumping to conclusions of like how something's going to play out, like trying to think ahead of like, oh, this is going to play out this way, because chances are it's not going to be anything like what I'm imagining or fearing that it's going to be. So, you know, trying to get like somebody, you know, a family member that's dealing with somebody that's in addiction, you know, I think the best thing that you can do is try to plant the seed of like, maybe you should consider going, and then really step back and remove yourself to protect yourself and maybe help them. Because, you know, I feel like the people that were closest to me, you know, I was using that. I was like using them to like basically co-sign my bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
So if they would have stepped back and like, you know, not wanted anything to do with me, I think that would have hurt a little bit more, to where it would have made me want to get in treatment more, or like find like a solution for whatever the hell's going on.
Makes sense. Love them from afar, kill them up close. Right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
Ben, any final thoughts?
No, I'm really glad you came on, Patrick. It's been really good to see you, man. And I like reminiscing back on some of the being part of some of the journey, having the opportunity and privilege of getting to witness these journeys. I've been coming across a lot of people where they have gone through our program and now they have significant sobriety time, and they're completely just in every way. When they walk in, they light up the room. When they walked in here like a dull, dim, busted up light bulb before.
Right.
And now like you just walk in the room and you could just feel like the glow and the energy. I've been getting a lot of that lately, man, and it's refreshing. It really is. Just been running into people that are like, hey, man, I'm sober. I ran into someone else at the gym at 6 a.m. this morning who's got like 6 or 7 years that came through here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. You have to tell me who.
Yeah.
All right, Patrick. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. And please go join our Facebook support group, Real Recovery Talk Support Group. That is it. We will see y'all later.